I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The purpose of this meeting is to keep it as short as absolutely possible. Sign our commitment books.
I'll make a motion. We sign our commitment books for the year 2014.
All those in favor? Okay. Pass them around and start signing. Start that in too.
The pages are tabbed.
What do you want to sign?
Yeah, there should be four places to sign. One on the first page, two on the second page, and one on the last page.
We all have those days.
Two on the second page?
Yep.
And once these are done, the bills are ready to go out tomorrow. Sealed and sealed.
Great.
I hate sending
Great.
Great.
I sent mine out when on vacation.
There's one on the third page, right?
Dave, while we're doing this, do you want to just a little blip about the SOP, or do you want to wait till the next meeting? What do you want to do?
I didn't come prepared to talk about it, but if you want, it's pretty straightforward. It's the main thing is the authorities to activate it and deactivate it.
Right.
And how extensive you want to make it. The danger with the warning center is not to allow it to become a shelter. That's what you want to do.
Absolutely.
That's the horror stories you hear when you research it.
Yep.
And the other thing is to make sure you have town presence of some sort while it's open.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer, but I think that would, since it's primarily, or at least I think concerns elderly people, you leave them elderly person here without their presence, and if they fall or something happens, it could generate some legal liability or raise some adverse.
Yeah. Did they talk about
Yeah, I gotta find that.
write everything you had, which is great work. I'll check with our liability insurance too to see where we stand with that. I don't know.
Well, a lawyer needs to review.
Right.
it.
I looked at this one, I thought
That's one thing the Red Cross and Knox County folks have to make sure your town lawyer looks at it and there's nothing there that jumps out at him or her. Because when you let them in here, you're taking custody of them.
Yeah.
Especially if they're elderly, or a parent with a child or something like that.
Hey, do you need this one?
So is this going to be a warming
Did you guys?
thing?
I
Warm.
think you got the email, right?
Warming
Yeah.
center, not a shelter.
Not a
Emergency
shelter.
I sent
Shelter
it
would be
yeah,
competing with the
so-
Red Cross, and
Yeah, but you have to have facilities to cook and
yeah,
bathe
your
and all that.
showers, and there's a whole lot of health-related issues there. I'm not saying down the road it might be a consideration, but I think something like this, you want to do a crawl, walk, run kind of thing, And then as time goes on, establish, what the needs are. We have anecdotal information, really right now. And who knows, if we're going to be much worse, or maybe my first winter here, the longest power outage I had was like an hour and a half. The past one was like 6 days. So it's
And most people in this area are used to that too, so we do have a lot of elderly. I know Carol spoke about that, and Eric Johns about reaching out to them, checking on them.
we also have more of a sense of community here as opposed to a town or a city where,
Maybe you know where they all live.
there's a network to assist them.
Then we had the army out here in 98 Clear Road.
Yeah.
For them, my neighbor Rodney called me in the midst of the outage. Just make sure they're okay. I thought it was kind of neat.
The one that we had in 98 across the lake from us, Brad Smith lived over there. For 3 or 4 days we watched just a little flicker of a candle in the window. Come the weekend and we called him and asked him if he wanted to come over and have supper and stuff. He'd been over there all by himself. He said, "Do you have a generator?" Yeah. He goes, I've already had supper, but I would die to sit and watch the news. And before Gary got off the phone, he was coming across the pond on his four-wheeler, and he walked in the house, took his boots off, he had his bare feet and everything, sat down, put his feet up, and sat there and watched the news while we ate supper.
Okay, anything else before we're done?
I wanted to ask about
Yes,
the
honey.
warming center.
Yes.
Is there any insurance, any effect to insurance?
That's why I said we need to contact her.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah, because we have the building insurance through MMA, so that would be a question for them.
Oh, I know, I figured you'd know.
No, I don't know, because I don't insure any warming centers at all. So.
Okay,
In
yeah,
the past, we used to let Hawkins Pond Association come over and rent not rented money-wise, but they'd use it for a meeting.
Mhm.
And they said no, the MMA shook their heads on that, said no, it's too much liability risk.
right,
Right,
there's a huge liability
Yeah.
risk with this.
Yes.
And I was also wondering about staffing it. Are we staffing this?
Well, I have some blurbs in there about the
Yeah.
staffing. It's
Right.
during, normally it would be open during office hours.
Yeah.
But there were provisions for it to stay open later or
On
longer,
weekends,
extended hours, but you would have to have a volunteer of some sort here.
Okay,
And one of those things, I think I kind of buried it in here, but is there could be authorized town volunteers where you all have authorized, say me, or somebody say you can represent the town and be here on premises. Once again, these are things a lawyer needs to look at because you'd be acting on behalf of the town.
and they'd have to be trained on how to deal
there
with
have
all
to-
kinds of issues.
especially if you've got an elderly person who's diabetic,
Right.
that can be a real, or a fall,
Yeah.
and break a hip. I mean, these are that's why you've got to have a representative here. It could be I think it could be a volunteer.
Do
After
we have an officer, emergency management officer?
the town, Eddington Fire Department's the disaster management
We
officer.
have the whole
Fire
plan, and people listen.
We also have a town health officer, Eric Johns,
But there's an emergency management,
director. And that's the Eddington Fire Chief.
Chief.
because generally,
Generally.
my knowledge is they would oversee. This would be
I don't
part of
think
the
they would be-
operation of,
Natural disaster, they were.
Natural
This
event,
is-
yeah.
national.
But
That's what that.
one of the things when we wrote it is that you did not, I wrote it in the sense you do not have to declare an emergency to activate it. Okay, and there's emergency activation procedures for the town emergency management plan. But I tried to make this where it would be independent of that. In other words, you wouldn't not have to declare an emergency to activate this center, for the warming center. And also, if you did have a disaster, you did have to activate the town's emergency management plan, that it would not guarantee that this would remain open, that the town would decide whether to keep it open or not.
That'd be like a step two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of buried in there, and maybe I can make it a little bit more,
What would you, what the plan you
but-
said you want
but
so
you-
far?
I think you should have it independent of declaring an emergency. Because you can have an isolated outage down on one road, and it's really not the threshold of an emergency, but you have elderly people there that need a place to go.
right.
And so you want to stay away from having to declare an emergency to do that.
Because we all know it always snows on Rebel Hill and nowhere else.
Yeah.
Usually, but-
So, but that's one of the lawyers need to look at this too. And probably
I
part of
think
the
what you're
Maine
gonna find in
Man-
insurance-
Maine Municipal Association to look at it as well, just make sure
I think
they.
what you're gonna find with the insurance, as long as it is a town function, town function, it is covered under what we have now.
I think as long as you're during office hours and all things. you're
No,
probably-
just as long as it is a town function, if this is something the town, you guys adopt this
No,
plan that he's got
could be,
on behalf of the town, it would be covered under insurance, but
I hope so.
but you're gonna have to have a town representative
Right.
here. You have to qualify as a function.
Right.
But anyway, take a look at it. I mean, it was my idea of what, this, based on their facility and all that. And I don't think we want to compete against Red Cross. That's- that's
no,
what
we
it
don't.
is.
Do you know, Dave, if there are other warming centers like little
Checked
communities
around,
around?
there seems to be a number of church-run and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But I'm having trouble finding a true town-run formal in the state of Maine.
Yeah.
There are a number of them in other towns. I was told Bucksport had one, but I called Bucksport, and that's really a shelter, and it's a partnership with Red Cross. And, so there's not a whole lot, and I don't want to pattern this after a church warming center, because municipal warming center and a church, I mean, that's kind of apples and oranges. You know, I think really, if you kind of start bare bones and get through 1 year and see how things work, then you can expand, or, you know, based on that. Even at the height of last year's winter, according to the Red Cross, I think they only had the max they had at the brewer shelter was like 7 people, 24 hours. I mean, it fluctuated a little bit, but I think the peak was like 7 people. I was kind of surprised by that, but this brewer didn't have a really extended outage, and the communities out here, I don't think, used it. From what I don't know anybody from Clifton.
And when you say it's Red Cross,
We referred someone there because she wanted cooking facilities.
when you say Red Cross,
American Red Cross.
right, but when you say that with the shelter, what do you mean?
Okay, the Red Cross establishes emergency shelters, and they have several chapters here in Maine. The headquarters is somewhere in Portland. But in Brewer, that school in Brewer, that's set up to be a shelter should they activate it. When I say shelter, that means they can provide meal service, or at least the facilities to make meals, pots, showers,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Now, down where I am, we have a shelter, but it's not a Red Cross. It's a town shelter. We have the emergency operations plan,
Yeah, facility.
but there's also at the church a warming center
Yeah.
that is open a few days a week during the wintertime,
Yeah.
different
Well, they're
sporadic
fairly
hours.
common for churches to have it.
But the town has, we
shelter.
have a shelter.
Well,
I
it's
just got a
Bucksport.
grant
Bucksport has
and
it.
got cots and blankets and pillows and
Yeah.
a whole bunch of
Now,
stuff.
where did the materials for that come from? The grant or just the town?
Materials below.
Well, when you say shelter, it means people can sleep there.
That's
That's how the Red Cross defines it.
Right?
Cots, blankets, did the town provide that?
Yeah, I just got a grant and bought it all for the town.
Well, you know, we discussed whether to have a shelter or a warming center. I think at this stage, warming center may be more appropriate.
We don't have facilities.
We don't have facility, and Bangor is, and Brewer are close enough that, and they cover Penobscot County.
Right,
So,
right.
I would not recommend that us.
No, this
that we would
building, I
want
wouldn't
to do that.
recommend being big enough. I just, when you said that, you couldn't find any that weren't,
Well,
Red
that's what Red
Cross.
Cross told me.
What about Eddington? What do they have
I'm sorry?
in Eddington?
Actually, I've stopped by to see Mr. Ellis 2 or 3 times and never could make contact, so I do not know.
He's over, you might catch it in Holden.
Plus it's a sheriff most of the time.
Because if,
And I've left messages.
if
there.
Holden and Eddington both have shelters or warming centers, then that's always an option for people.
Yeah.
I think even if we started with just a place to come during business hours to get warm,
Water.
with no resources after that, you know, and whatever simply we can state with referral points to wherever.
Right.
After that time, this is where you go, or this is what you need, you know, and then build from that. Even if we gotta, I think we need to be available to do something, but I think we gotta cover
Well,
our tracks.
opening the building for people to come in is not going to be that difficult. And you can have a microwave oven, you can have, you know, you need some rules, code conduct kind of thing, you put that in there. It's when you get into after hours, is where things start to get a little complicated.
Then what if we don't do after hours? We're not obligated to, correct?
Well, you're not obligated to even have a warming center.
Right.
But
Right.
if people, you know, I suspect the target audience, they're going to be the elderly,
Right.
retired,
Right.
and maybe working or families where the stay-at-home spouse with small children, where, you know, they may need a place to go. They don't have a place to go to work. And so that would kind of scratch that need. But what do you do on Saturday and Sunday, a couple of holidays? You know, and I really strongly recommend this, just opening the door and letting people in. You need to have someone here responsible, be it a volunteer or be it a town official, which could be you know, I'm so.
Well, I think at any rate, we can go through what you've written, we'll bring it up at our August meeting.
Yeah.
Kind of go from there with some ideas.
There are warming centers out there. There's a lot of, actually, for when you get out west, there's some really large ones, communities, and they have some outstanding plans, but they, based on the description of the facilities, it's kind of not in that league.
No.
So,
No.
and,
Okay.
but the absence of shower facilities and all that, we kind of put the kitchen facilities kind of limit.
Yep.
Although some of that can be rectified fairly easily, but nevertheless.
Yep.
Anyway.
Thank you for your hard work on
Yeah,
that.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it, Dave.
Yeah, I read the first 3 pages, I
Yeah,
got distracted and didn't get back to it, but what I read so far I thought was very well
It's just my
researched.
idea of how
Yep.
much they,
We appreciate
Okay,
it.
perfect. Anything else from anybody?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Perfect. We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you all for coming, I appreciate it.
That was a good vacation there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, safe travels.